Good morning and welcome. You're watching News Central now on News Central Television. My name is Mazino Appeal. First, the top stories this hour. Nigeria labor unions insist on May 31st deadline over proposed 615,000 naira minimum wage. Several villages feared trapped in Kenya's Kimende County. And South Africa's President Ramaphosa to sign National Health Insurance Bill into law. Details in a moment. News Central now at this hour begins in Nigeria with updates from the Federal Executive Council meeting that started on Monday and ended on Tuesday with the following resolutions. The Nigerian government has suspended the controversial Cyber Security Levy on electronic banking transactions. Minister of Information Mohammed Idris disclosed this while briefing State House correspondent after the Federal Executive Council meeting at the State House in Abuja on Tuesday. Idris said the Cyber Security Levy was thoroughly discussed at the FEC meeting, adding that the president is not insensitive to the feelings of the Nigerians. He said the policy is undergoing a review.
The position of government is that that policy has been suspended. That policy has been put on hold. That is the position of government for now. It is undergoing some form of review. It was reiterated in council yesterday. You know that today's council is a continuation of the council meeting of yesterday. So I can tell you the Cyber Security Levy has been put on hold. It is being reviewed by government. For now, it is on hold.
In the meantime, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, also said President Bola Tinubu's directed that all memos seeking to procure petrol-dependent vehicles should no longer be given approval.
There's the opportunity. There are 30,000 conversion kits coming in. That's through the government initiative, and any private sector person that is enterprising can also bring their own. You can convert keke marwa, you can convert buses, you can convert cars to CNG. You just put the fuel, they put the tank in the boot, and you are virtually ready to go once they've wired it up. So it is a huge opportunity, and it's a decisive move, even for climate change, and there are benefits to be had there.
Now, Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Management Festus Keyamo has also briefed on the council resolution, said government approved introductions of Tollgate payments for access into all federal airports across the country. In the meantime, Keyamo said the FEC approved the purchase and installation of recovery system equipments to the tune of 4.2 billion naira for the ministry. Now, we understand that after several weeks of intermission, the tripartite committee set up by the Nigerian government will finally meet on Wednesday. Labor unions are also standing their ground on their proposal of a 615,000 naira minimum wage while insisting on May 31st, 2024 deadline. The development comes after the failure of the government to present a nationally acceptable minimum wage to Nigerians following the expiration of the old minimum wage on April 18, 2024. President Bola Tinubu, through Vice President Kashim Shettima, on January 30, 2024, inaugurated the 37-member tripartite committee to come up with a new minimum wage. Now, to education matters now, the Academic Staff Union of Universities has threatened another nationwide strike to protest the absence of governing councils in all federal universities, among other issues the federal government is yet to address. ASUU President Professor Emmanuel Osedeke issued the threat at an ongoing press conference at the union's National Secretariat in Abuja. The body, which said the federal government dissolved governing councils of the universities in May last year, has asked Nigerians to hold the government responsible for any decision it takes to protest the action of government. Now, to further discuss this, I'm joined by Dr. Kich Chinwu, an educator. Good morning and welcome. Good to have you here. So, good question to ask you to start this. Yes. Now, how does the absence of the governing council in federal universities really impact the overall quality of education and the academic activities as well? And what long-term consequences could this have on the Nigerian education system?
you know, running a university without a governing council is almost like raising a child without proper parenting. The governing councils of universities should be an intermediary framework between the universities and the government of the day, where they act like they are neutral, but then they work to bring on the real values and vision of governance down to the grassroots in terms of education. So they have direct interaction with the universities of concern, and then they bring reports to the federal government on the day-to-day runnings of the universities, the challenges and all that. So when you set up a university without a governing council, it seems as though you're purposely blocking your ears to the realities and the concerns of these universities. And for the most part, it's not a very interesting idea. Okay, because how then do you get reports? You otherwise would get indirect reports through news blogs and gossip blogs and all that, and it's not appropriate. Okay, you really don't bear down on the concerns of the university, the day-to-day concerns of the university, and there isn't proper interaction, and there can't be appropriate development as you desire. Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Kich, I hear what you're saying now. However, ASUU has done what ASUU has always done, which is to, well, give a threat, go to the media. But what alternative strategies could ASUU employ to exert the pressure that they need for the federal government to address their concerns? And what are the potential backdraw or drawbacks of another nationwide strike for students and lecturers and, in general, the education sector?
Okay, it's a sad one, because the reason why ASUU tends to the media or otherwise threatens strike action is because we don't have a listening government. I mean, this is not peculiar to any particular government. We're talking about 2009 agreements. 2009 was how many years ago? You know, and the government of about 15 years ago. And it's sad to note that over 15 years, exchange rates have I mean, more than multiplied, right? And then there have been no responses. There have been promises, failed promises. It shows a high sense of irresponsibility on the part of the government. I mean, you set up these universities to function and to run, benchmarked with global standards. And now there's no monitoring system. There's no responsive system. Okay, so you just make promises, empty promises, and then it comes to educating the populace. Then you send them abroad. You send your own children abroad and let the children of the masses suffer in these universities. And so, how do you measure standards? How do you assess the performances of the universities? And then how do you expect the children to compete with children in other climes? You know, so it's unfortunate, but ASUU is left with no other option than to reach out to you. Probably before this stage, a lot of letters should have been written, a lot of lobbying would have been done just to get a face with the sponsor, get a face with the government. But the government doesn't seem to be granting that access. And so the media seems to be the only channel through which they can say, okay, government, you have to hear us. You know, so they have to condition the government to listening to their plight, hearing their cries, and doing something. And then over time, 15 years, okay, yes, there have been interactions, but all the interactions have just gone to waste because the government has not responded as they should. There are earned allowances, there are sponsorship grants, also research grants and all that. And the government says, we will do this. And government in, government out, government doesn't do what they ought to do or what they promised to do. And what do you expect? ASUU would say, we'll go on strike. Now, strikes are not the best response from ASUU to the government, but you discover that most labor unions in Nigeria tend towards strikes because that is the only way they can twist the government. That is the only way they can pressure the government. That is the only way they can embarrass the government enough to taking the needed action. And then, you ask me what other style or action can they take beyond this? Communication. But where there is no communication, then there is frustration. Okay, you want to say something, but you're not given the listening ear. You think of whatever, I mean, even in the home front, Your child wants to say something to you and you're not listening, you're not paying attention. The child would make all sorts of noise just to get you, paying the attention. Even if you're sleeping, the child would come, bang on your door and do everything. It's natural. So in Nigeria, the only formula that works is the strike action, especially prior to elections. Because then they are campaigning, they want votes from the labor unions, they want this, So getting on this at this time, seems to be 1 year after the previous elections. And up till now, the government of the day seems to have settled down, as we assume in Nigeria. But unfortunately, education doesn't seem to be on the exclusive list or on the emergency list of government. A lot is going wrong. And if ASUU keeps quiet, probably approaching things the way they usually do, trying to write letters, trying to seek audience with the government, things would go still, things would go to waste.
Okay,
and then the blame will be on all the university systems, the lecturers and all that. So I think strike actions seem to be the only language the government of the day understands, and that's why they use that approach.
All right, then, Dr. Kich, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's as much as we can ask you this moment. Thank you very much. Now, staying with education matters, a multiple indicator cluster survey released on Tuesday shows only 7% of youngsters in the 15 to 24 age group in Nigeria have acquired ICT skills. The report launched by UNICEF found that 73% of 15 to 24-year-olds in Nigeria are literate, and their literacy was assessed by their ability to read a short, simple statement or on their school attendance. In Nigeria, 26% of children of primary school age are out of school. At the junior secondary school level, the percentage of out-of-school children drops to 25%, and at the senior secondary school level, it increased to 34% of children. The report found that 27% of children aged 7 to 14 have foundational reading skills and 25% have foundational numeracy skills. However, learning gaps were observed along socioeconomic lines, with a higher share of urban and wealthy children having foundational reading and numeracy skills. Now, to discuss this, we are joined by Learning and Development Consultant and founder, Adon Kor Foundation, Dr. Adon Kor. You're welcome. Good to have you on this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. So let's talk about this now. The report highlights that 73% of youth are literate, but only 7% have ICT skills. Can you explore the reasons behind this gap, and are there specific areas within the education system where ICT skills development could be integrated more effectively?
Sure. From an ICT perspective, I think it's really just a matter of priorities. I think we have a big education problem as a whole, which is why those numbers are where they are. But we've been talking education and advocating education and at least a basic education for all children for a while. And so those numbers are a little higher. Obviously, we still have issues there if 30% of our children are still unable to read and write, don't have those basic literacy skills. Those somewhat, that 30% is somewhat caused by some of the issues we have around access to schools, poverty, out of school children. So those conversations have been had for a while. I think the digital problem or the technology problem is a little different because technology is somewhat new. We have not prioritized technology in our schools. Actually, we've been pushing, my organization has been pushing for a while to see if we can get some legislation around requiring technology education for all schools across the country because of how low our numbers are. I think in 2024, and anyone can see how it is a little disappointing that only 7% of our children between 15 and 24 have those basic skills. And we're not asking them to be coders. We're not asking them to be, technology experts in any way. All we're talking about here is the basics of understanding what is a computer, how to turn it on, how to turn it off, how to use it effectively, and just understanding even the possibilities that await through the information technology. And it's a poverty problem. It's a prioritization problem from a government perspective. And our hope is that some of these numbers will bring more attention to it. It's sad that we are talking AI in many cases, where a majority of our children don't even know what a computer is or have never seen or touched one in Nigeria today.
Okay, so Dr. Adon Kor, now the data shows a significant dropout rate at the senior secondary school level of 34% and a low ICT skills percentage of 7%. Now, is there a correlation between these factors?
Sure, there isn't a direct correlation, but what you'll see is that the longer children are able to stay in school, that the greater the likelihood that they will receive technology education. What we're beginning to see now is that some schools are beginning to offer technology education to the younger children, to the older children, sorry. And so the longer they stay in school into senior secondary school, the more chances they get of being exposed to that technology education. But they're two very different problems, and there's no direct correlation between the number of the rate at which children stay in senior secondary school versus the number of children that have the basic ICT skills. That number is just low because we haven't paid any attention to it and we're not prioritizing it. Our hope is that both the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Communications will begin to look at these numbers and try to put things in place to ensure that more of our children are being educated.
Okay, then, so the report also identifies a significant difference in foundational skills between children from wealthy homes and those from poor backgrounds. How can we address this disparity to ensure equitable access to ICT education and bridge that digital divide?
Sure, I think the basic thing is the government getting into the play, making sure that all schools have access to this. So for instance, my foundation goes into schools every day, and we go into the less privileged schools, and we're teaching at least 1 to 2 hours of basic technology education. The government needs to pay attention to it to give more, get into more public-private partnerships and allow people to go into the schools to teach. Many of our teachers don't have the skills. And so if the teachers don't have the skills, expecting that our children will be receiving that education is really a joke at this point. So I think it's really prioritizing technology education in schools. That's number one. The other thing that we also need to consider doing is providing access outside of schools. We have started creating children's libraries, small children's libraries in rural areas where children can go in on Saturdays and get access to computer education. That needs to be more widespread across the country because obviously we still have many children that are out of school, close to 20 million. And so if we can't get them in schools, which we should do, we also need to find other avenues to teach them the same education. Let's get it into churches. Let's get it into mosques. Let's get it into any establishment where children are present. The children want to learn. They're ready to soak up the information, but unfortunately, our government is not focused on ensuring that the less privileged have access. The wealthy people are, they have 5 and 10 computers within a one home, within a family. They have phones, they have computers, they have iPads. Where the less privileged children don't even know what these things are and how they function and what the possibilities are with them.
So you noted a challenge, which is very obvious, that most of the teachers, even in schools, are not even aware or even digitally aware. Now, if you were to be asked as an expert and the owner of a foundation, what it will cost the government to actually make our teachers or the educational system more digitally inclined instead of the brick and mortar process that we have now, in your expert opinion, what would that cost them in terms of time or in terms of, well, even actual money?
Sure. It really doesn't cost a lot, right? I think today we go into schools for, as little as 3,000 to 5,000 naira. And are able to connect with roughly between 20 and 100 children in each session, just giving them the basics of computer education. So if you compare what it costs to be able to expose people to such education and the money we spend on other priorities that we have, whether it's travel or other things that we spend our government money on, it's nickels. It's very small comparatively. I think what is important, what we need to do is prioritize it and connect with those who have been doing it, like our foundation or others who are doing it, to ensure that this happens as quickly as possible. The risks are significant. If we're looking at 7% in Nigeria, and then across the globe, we're looking at 75%, it's a huge gap. And our children just cannot compete. It will affect education, it would affect employment, it would affect food availability, it would affect security. There's so much that it affects banking. There's so much it affects today, and our government really just needs to prioritize it. Our foundation really has been sending out letters to different members of the government, asking them for access to be able to get into the schools and teach these children. We are ready to do it because it's a really pathetic number.
Well, Dr. Adon Kor, thank you very much for joining us and discussing this matter with us. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Let's do a short break now. When we get back, more news here on News Central TV. Welcome back. Now, Amnesty International has called on the government of Nigeria to wake up to its responsibility of ensuring the rights of citizens are protected by all means necessary. Placing a finger on the root causes of the attacks, which have lasted over 20 years, taking lives and property, the Human Rights Watch says if government fails to wade into the seemingly unending crises now, they may be never able to end it. News Central's Chizoba Nyanwe now reports.
Recalling the genesis of these sad incidences in Plateau State spanning over 2 decades, many individuals and groups, including Amnesty International, has been disturbed by the unending crisis. Examining the causes, losses, and way out of the horrible trench, the Human Rights Watchdog thinks government is not doing enough to end the carnage.
When is this thing going to end? When are we going to see the end of this violence? When are we going to witness peace in this state? We know that the government is doing its best through the security agencies, but definitely Amnesty International as an organization is of the position that the government is not doing enough.
If the promises of elected public office holders are anything to go by, then attention should be given to the vulnerable for a safer society.
Your power comes from the people. If the people are all killed, who are you going to rule? Therefore, we are pleased appealing to Nigerian authorities to do something to make sure that something historic happens. And this should be the last year when this kind of violence is going to happen in Plateau State.
Participants at the event were unanimous in their opinions and collectively called for a more peaceful Plateau.
We need to settle our conflicts by killing ourselves or by making sure that we burn our properties down the line. The answer is no. So for those 2 reasons, it's very key that we have this kind of sit-downs. It's like a town hall meeting to sit down amongst ourselves and talk to ourselves and tell ourselves we must do better.
So we want an intervention in such a way that government will now come in so that they will build their houses for them. We expect a situation whereby government will come in, provide security for them because they lack the security. They are willing to go back to their home because the places are not they are not safe.
With the casualty figures recorded, Amnesty International is of the view that if the recommendations presented to government are attended to, then insecurities on the plateau will be a thing of the past. In Just for News Central, Chizoba Nyanwe.
And now to election matters. Nigeria's electoral body has appealed to civil society organizations in the country to help mobilize eligible voters for the Commission's continuous voters registration exercise ahead of the Edo and Ondo states governorship polls. The chairman of the Commission says that 397 wards, including the Commission's state headquarters in the 2 states, have been mobilized to carry out the exercise. Ahmedin Uye reports.
It was part of the electoral body's engagement with stakeholders ahead of the Edo and Ondo governorship polls. However, this time with civil society organizations. The chairman of the commission informed those present that plans have already been concluded to commence the continuous voters registration exercise in both Edo and Ondo states, saying this will present registrants with the opportunity to transfer their polling units to new areas.
Those who are registered voters also have the opportunity to transfer their registration from other states of the Federation to Edo and Ondo states, or from one location to another within the states.
He also adds that those who are interested in replacing their lost or damaged voters' cards will have the opportunity to do so.
Lost or damaged voters' cards will be replaced during the exercise. The CVR will take place simultaneously in the two states from Monday 27th May 2024 to Wednesday 5th June 2024 from 9 in the morning to 3 p.m. daily, including the weekend.
He concludes by urging members of civil society organizations present to help mobilize eligible voters for their registration exercise.
The Commission therefore appeals to civil society organizations to join us in mobilizing prospective registrants for the exercise, particularly on the need to register early and not wait until the deadline approaches, when the registration centers will be inundated by 11th hour registrants.
They seem to partially depend on us for collaboration and cooperation. We promise that we will fulfill all the demands you have made of us, and that this relationship should be strengthened and continue growing.
The chairman warned that there will be no option for online registration. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Coming up, United Nations warns of acute food insecurity in Sudan, and we'll bring you the details right after this break. Welcome back. Now, News Central now continues in West Africa, where Burkina Faso's military ruler have announced they will hold national consultations at the end of this month to determine the next steps in the country's transition to civil rule. The country has been run by a military regime since soldiers deposed elected President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore in 2022. Junta leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré then seized power in another coup on September 30, 2022. He established a transitional government and legislative assembly for 21 months, a period set to expire on June 1st. According to a press release signed by Minister of Territorial Administration Emile Zerbo and read on national television on Tuesday night, national meetings have been called for May 25 and 26 in Ouagadougou. Up north, Tunisian lawyers have protested and launched a nationwide strike over the arrest of a lawyer and political commentator in a weekend police raid. Sosi Zouye, head of the Bar Association Tunis division, told journalists at the Tunis Court of First Instance that the strike was observed 100%. Several rallied outside the court against the arrest of Sonia Damani, demanding her immediate release and chanting that the judiciary is working under orders. Following the heavy-handed arrest of lawyers at the Bar Association's headquarters, Bar President Hamtem Mzio called for a rapid intervention from the President of the Republic, describing the arrest within the organization as serious criminal acts.
طالبين منك التدخل العاجل للتفريق بين مسألتين. نحن راهو ما احناش مع عقوبة جماعية. كل من ارتكب مخالفة أو خرق للقانون يتحمل مسؤوليته أمام قضاء مستقل وأمام عدالة حقيقية، أمام حق دفاع، أمام محاكمة عادلة، بدون تعسف، بدون استعمال العنف، بدون استعمال القوة. ولو عوان الأمن ينفذوا في التعليمات بطريقة هكا وحشية وطريقة معناها بالشماتة، حتى بعد ما يقع السحل ولا اعتداء على زميلنا وجروا وكروا البارح في المستشفى. ها هما بنفسهم عرفوا رواحهم اللي هما اعتداوا عليه وهزوه مباشرة، يعني بعد ما محاولات عديدة بس عرفناه حتى وين.
We head now to East Africa, where the United Nations says more than 7 million people in South Sudan are at risk of acute flood insecurity, or rather food insecurity, in the coming months, including tens of thousands at a catastrophic level of famine. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, in a statement, an estimated 7.1 million people will likely be experiencing high levels of acute food insecurity between April and July 2022. It adds that within that group there are 79,000 people at risk of catastrophic levels, which is equivalent to famine, and mostly in locations affected by climate-related shocks, economic crisis, and conflict. A total of 9 million people are in need of humanitarian aid in South Sudan, which for the past year has been under compounding pressures from the war in neighboring Sudan. Still in the same region, an unspecified number of villagers are feared to be trapped following a landslide in Kenya's Kimende area of central Kiambu County. The incident happened on Tuesday night following heavy rains in the area, which is reported to have escarpments. According to images circulated online, many homes were covered in mudslides. The Kenya Red Cross reports that after the incident, the area was roped off and designated as a danger zone. The relief organization also said a number of people are still missing, though no deaths have been officially reported. Rescue efforts are set to resume on Wednesday. We now head to South Africa, where President Cyril Ramaphosa will today publicly sign into law the National Health Insurance Bill, which directs the transformation of South Africa's healthcare system to achieve universal coverage for health services and, through this, overcome critical socioeconomic imbalances. The Health and Allied Workers Indamba Trade Union has welcomed the signing of the bill, as its goal is to allow all members of the public to assess healthcare and the final steps towards the enactment of the bill. Meanwhile, some civil organizations have declared that they will take legal action into consideration. The Business Interests Association has expressed regret over the law's current shape on several occasions. In the past, it has petitioned Ramaphosa to not sign the measure and to send it back to Parliament. Now to discuss this, we're joined by Rich Sisina Haitu, President. Good morning and welcome. Good to have you on this morning.
Good morning, my leader. Thank you for having us, and good morning to the viewers at home.
Great. Now, it looks like there's a lot of misinformation out there about the NHI bill. What exactly is the bill about, and how do citizens understand what it entails?
Yes, there is actually a misunderstanding, and those who are making a lot of noise, particularly negative noise, they are talking from a point of ignorance and they talk of a point of lack of information, in particular because the people think that because public healthcare system is failing in a way, it's falling apart, it's dysfunctional. There's a lot of problems that we are facing in public sector. There's gross shortage of staff and gross shortage of material resources. As a result, those who are financially well off, who are beneficiaries in particular of private sector, it's them who are anti-NHI, who are saying, no, don't bring NHI. We can't have a healthcare system under government because government has failed public healthcare system. As a result, that particular NHI will fall apart as well. So they are actually saying no to NHI from a point of privilege because they want to continue to be beneficiaries of a well-resourced private sector. So as Health and Allied Workers in the Trade Union, we are saying let NHI come because we believe it's going to be the greatest equalizer. It's going to put us under one roof. We are going to sing from the same hymn. We are not going to have a two-tier system in South Africa, but we are going to have a system, a healthcare system as enshrined in our constitution that is going to make sure everyone who lives in South Africa, when you are at your most vulnerable state, a state of sickness, you get quality nursing and medical care.
Okay then, Sisina, so it seems there's a lot of people, a lot of parties who are opposing the signing of this bill. What's your take on these parties?
They are out of order. They are out of order, my leader. Those parties, if you pay attention and you zoom closer to say who is actually anti-NSI, it's the parties that that are sponsored in South Africa by white monopoly capital and those who are owning means of production in South Africa. People who are anti-NSI or parties who are anti-NSI are those who are sponsored by the $1 million business, the business of medical aid schemes. Those who are anti-NSI in this country are those who are the DA, for example, of which it's a DA, we all know it's a national party reloaded. So those who are anti-NSI are scared of equality. They just want to keep this inequality in South Africa going. So now they realize that obviously, and like I'm saying, with NSI is going to be the greatest equalizer. That is what they don't want to do. They want to continue to benefit. Actually, they are our misery, our pain as poor black people, Indians and whites in South Africa. It's their $1 million business. It's those people who are actually opposing NSI. They don't want to be admitted in the same hospital as their voters who actually have voted them into power. It's selfishness. It's evil-heartedness. They are just displaying an I don't care attitude. People of this country, voters in particular, they are only important when they have to go to vote. But when they are sick, it's okay for them to subject it to mediocre and substandard way of doing things.
Okay then, Cina, so it's one thing to pass a bill into law like Ramaphosa is going to do today. Then it's another thing if these bills are sustainable. So the question about the NHI bill is it sustainable in itself?
We must make it sustainable. Yes, there are countries where we are told that no, there are third world countries that have tried this universal coverage, but it didn't pass. Why Africans in particular are undermining themselves so much? Why are we saying it's not sustainable? We don't even want to try it. The biggest question that we are supposed to be asking ourselves in this country in particular is to say, how do we make it work? It can actually work if we didn't have those opposing, but if we didn't have private sector opposing NSI, and we all know they are going to make sure it collapses. But if you look at it and the problems that is going to fix in this country, you can tell that if we are all singing from the same hymn and everyone educated or not educated, whether you have money or you don't have money, in particular the educated elite in this country, the educated fraternity of this country is capable. In Africa, particularly, we are capable of making universal coverage in as far as health is concerned work for us. We are actually capable of doing that. We can make it work. It looks like it's not sustainable for now. When you look at what is happening in public sector, when you look into corruption, when you look into the fact that South Africa is still controlled by those who are owning means of production, white monopoly capital in particular, that exists to maximize profit. In that particular sense, then we believe it's not going to be sustainable going forward. But we are saying as health and allied workers in the trade union, bring it on. Let it collapse in front of all of us so that it can prove to all of us that in Africa, in as far as running successful organizations, it simply means we are useless.
Cina, thank you very much. That's a very passionate response to my question. Bring it on, you said. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, my leader, for having us.
You're welcome. Still ahead, President Putin meets new cabinet in Moscow. We'll bring you the details after this break. Welcome back. Now, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has met with his new cabinet after the outgoing government resigned during Putin's inauguration for a fifth Kremlin term. Incoming Defense Minister Andrei Belousov was present at the meeting. Belousov said Moscow's priority was to secure victory on the battlefield against Ukraine while minimizing human losses. On Sunday, Putin nominated economist Andrei Belousov to replace Sergei Shoigu as Moscow's defense chief, a surprise move more than 2 years into a conflict that Russia hoped would be wrapped up in a matter of days.
Коллеги, в ближайшее время нам предстоит определить финансовое обеспечение наших планов, механизмов поддержки российских семей, граждан, бизнеса. Ну, в общем, вы все понимаете, о чем я говорю. Мы работали с вами над этим на протяжении почти всего предыдущего года, ну, как минимум 6-8 месяцев. Впереди у нас много задач. Важно для долгосрочного, устойчивого, уверенного развития нашей страны действовать совместно, в едином строю, что называется, выражаясь военным языком, вместе с депутатами Госдумы и вместе с регионами Российской Федерации.
Welcome to Business News. The Nigerian government, represented by Minister of Foreign Affairs Yusuf Maitama-Tugar, emphasized its intention to engage with economic powerhouses like the United States, China, and Russia without aligning with any single country against another. Tugar highlighted Nigeria's strategic autonomy and democratic principles, expressing wariness of Africa becoming a battleground for the great economic powers. He used the opportunity to seek support from countries like the United States. Additionally, Tugar used his visit to the U.S. to advocate for Nigeria's permanent membership in the United Nations Security Council, citing the country's population and economic status. This aligns with Nigeria's foreign policy agenda centered on democracy, demography, development, and diaspora. In South Africa, the CEO of Anglo-American revealed that a bid from BHP to acquire the company prompted an expedited plan for the spin-off of its platinum assets in South Africa. This move is expected to raise concerns in Pretoria just weeks before a national election. While Anglo was already conducting its own review of assets, including platinum and diamonds, the timeline had to be accelerated due to BHP's approach. BHP had requested that Anglo divest its platinum and iron ore units as part of its bid. After rejecting BHP's proposals, Anglo outlined a strategy that involves potentially breaking up the company through demerging or selling its coal, nickel, diamonds, and platinum businesses. The demerger of the troubled platinum unit, Amplats, was announced, causing a 10% drop in its shares. And finally, the Qatari Minister of Commerce and Industry, His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Hamad bin Kazim Al Thani, held separate meetings with the Moroccan Minister of Industry and Trade, Riyad Mizo, and the Malaysian Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, Datuk Seri Tengku Safrul Abdulaziz. They discussed areas of mutual interest and ways to strengthen cooperation in trade, investment, and industry between their respective countries. The minister emphasized Qatar's successful economic policies in supporting the private sector, including incentives, legislation, and investment opportunities available in the country. These efforts aim to attract more investors and businessmen to Qatar. That's the offering on Business News at this time. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasami Peter. The news continues shortly. Bye for now.
And now sports. Turtle Marine Academy won the Battle of Lagos on Tuesday as they defeated city rival Lagos Seaside Boys on day 2 of the first phase of the Adon Handball Premier League 2024 in Benin City, Edo State. In what turned out to be an incredibly interesting match, Turtle Marine Academy, tutored by coach Shito Adeomi Agbola, defeated the Seaside Boys 33-26 to continue their push for a first league title. In other matches in the male category, Safety Shooters are leading the league table for the second straight day following their comfortable 35-17 victory over Adamawa Warriors, while Correction Boys kept Sunshine Kings in check with an easy 33-23 win. Rema Strikers earned a 33-27 victory over Kano Pillars, lacking of motivation and also drive, while the defenders were defenseless against the onslaught of a rampaging Niger United as they succumbed to a 30-15 defeat to the defending champions. And that's all the news this morning. Thank you very much for staying with us. But first, let's take a look at the major stories we covered. Nigeria labor unions insist on May 31st deadline over proposed 615,000 naira minimum wage. And several villagers feared trapped in Kenya's Kimende County. And of course, South Africa's President Ramaphosa to sign National Health Insurance Bill into law. Now do remember to send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on your screen right now. And do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Evo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.